Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. Today, we're going to be going over the best practices for electrical plan takeoff, and we'll be using our electrical bid manager and Planswift to give you some great examples. But first, I wanted to touch on how you can interact. At the bottom of this video, there is a link to a web form, and if you click on that and submit the form with your question, we'll bring it up during the webinar. And if you're logged in to YouTube with your Google account, you'll see a chat and be able to interact with the chat on the right side of this video. And you could just plug in your question or comments over there, and we'll address those as well. So you could choose either one. My name is Derek Delaquadri, and I am the president of Vision Infosoft. And I have Brian Hoffelder here with me as usual, and he is our resident training and software development expert, and he'll be guiding us through today's webinar. So Brian, you want to
I'll take it
take
from there.
over? All right.
Good morning, or in some cases, good afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone. This webinar today, as Derek said, is going to be about doing electronic digital takeoff, of course, with our estimating program, EBM, and our partner with our partnership with Planswift. So this is mostly about why you should be doing it electronically. I'm going to give you some examples and show you how to do it, but it's more about why you should be doing this electronically as opposed to manually. Because I know there's still a lot of people out there with that are doing it manually. One of the biggest reasons to do it with EBM and Planswift is that they are fully integrated. When you take off an item on the drawings, it puts it back in EBM automatically. And I'll just give you a quick example here. Let's just say I want to take off some of these occupancy sensors over here in the restrooms. From the EBM screen, I would go to occupancy sensors. I'm going to do the ones that have a price, and I'll do wall mounted. So the integration has this little symbol built in. It's the Planswift symbol. I don't know if it looks like an eyeball or a bird, but one of those items that will automate or initiate the counting on Planswift. So it goes right over to the Planswift screen. You just click on the symbol. You can see it keeps a running count. You can count all of them. You can come back and pick up some extras. When you want to stop counting, you just hit this little red button, puts the quantity back in EBM, and you hit OK. So it eliminates the whole process of writing it down and then inputting into EBM. It all happens simultaneously, basically. So that's one of the biggest reasons to do this electronically and to do it with EBM and Planswift is because of the integration. Everything is integrated: counting, measuring, the whole process. And for that reason, it speeds up the takeoff because you're eliminating that step of keying in the quantities and all that. It speeds up the process. It cuts down the number of steps you need to do to actually complete or to do the takeoff. So it's the integration that speeds it up. You could use one of these takeoff programs manually and just do a whole takeoff and use their tools to create the record of what you're doing, but then you'd have to key it in. So it is a faster takeoff because it's going in simultaneously. So the integration and the speed are kind of the whole reason to be doing it this way. Another thing that this does is it creates a legend as you go through the takeoff. And what I mean by a legend is, I'll show you. Oops. I'm going to go back to this sheet where I've done a little bit of the takeoff. So you can see all the different colored dots with the counts and the measurements. Over here on the left, it does have the quantities and the lengths of anything I've taken off. But at some point, if you're ready to make this into a PDF file or an image that you can send to somebody else, all you do is right click and you hit show legend. So that little legend that I'm moving up to the top right here has everything I've taken off so far. I can resize it if I want, make it a little bigger, make it a little smaller, move it around the drawings. Oops. There we go. And when you print this page, you can print it to a printer, obviously, or you can also print it to a PDF. It'll have that legend on it. So if you want to send it to somebody who doesn't have Planswift, all they have is any kind of a smart device. It will come up on their tablet, their phone, their computer, as any PDF image would. They've got the whole takeoff up there at the top right. So I think it's a great tool to send to somebody in the field, so they can not only see what you counted, but they can see how you routed your home runs here. This is a home run from an air handler unit up to the panel. Um, and again, when I go back to the full page, you'll see it up in the legend here. It's 48 feet plus a 10-foot drop. So accuracy is a big thing with takeoff. And the thing I always worry about, and I preach this all the time, is the biggest mistake you can make in an estimate is leaving something out. Now, it could be something major like a feeder. It could just be a couple of receptacles. But anything that you miss is going to make your estimate less accurate. So let me just show you how this helps you avoid that. So basically, you want to look for anything that's not been recorded, anything that hasn't been counted. And you can see right here at the outside of this little storage closet is a receptacle I missed. I did it on purpose, but just to illustrate the point. So now all you do is go back into EBM and you go to receptacles and duplex, 20 amp. Then I can count it, record it, and it's in my takeoff. So the whole point here is that you're going to get more accuracy by highlighting everything that you count, highlighting everything that you measure, and it means you're going to miss less items. Because if you've highlighted, you've also recorded it in EBM. You could highlight it with a highlighter and put it down on a piece of paper, but that doesn't ensure you're going to put it into EBM accurately or at all. You can also use this as a tool for basic CAD work, whether it's a design build job where you want to show the location of your outlets and fixtures and any other symbols that you need on the drawing if there isn't a design. And you can also use it for as-builts. It's kind of the same process. And the nice thing is when you put the symbols on the drawing, it takes them off at the same time. So let me show you a quick example of that. So up in here in this corridor, let's say that we added a couple of receptacles. Again, it could be a brand new design or it could be an as-built where I want to show them where we added some receptacles. We just go back into EBM again. Conveniently, we're already on the receptacles. So I'm going to hit the little button to count. And I'll put one here, and I'll put one here. Now I can record it just like if I was doing an estimate. Stay where you are. And that takes care of getting it into my estimate. Again, it could be in a change order. It could be something I want to bill the customer for, but I've now taken it off. When you go back into Planswift now, oops, let's see if I can get, you can turn that into a symbol. We just go to properties. There's a little library down here. I'm going to make it red, as if maybe like on an as-built you might put red symbols on there. And then you'll see it puts it right here on the drawings. I can actually move it a little bit, set it up on the wall a little nicer. And you can attach notes to these things that you're putting on the drawings. There's a button up here to do a note. And you just draw a box where you want the note. So maybe I want to type in addendum 1. And then I'll just get a little bit finicky here. I'll make that a little bit smaller. And then if I want that same note on the other receptacle, you can just copy it and paste it. And there you go. So these notes are kind of handy, especially again if you're doing as-builts or even if you're doing a design job and you want to have a note related to that symbol that you just put in the drawing, it's real handy. So again, it kills two birds with one stone. It takes it off either into a new bid or into an existing job or an existing change order. And then you can also put the symbol in the drawing. And you can see it puts it on the legend up here too. Okay, the last thing I want to just give you a little example of is a comparison. You know, when you get revised drawings, it's very challenging to see what's changed. You can print out a copy of each page and set them side by side, but we can do it electronically and we can even overlay it. So I've done a quick little overlay here. So this is a lighting plan, obviously. And what happens when you overlay it is anything that was on the original, on the new drawing, excuse me, that wasn't on the original drawing will come up in red. So you can see down here in the lower left, there's a lighting contactor and a time clock that weren't on the original drawing. There's even a fixture here, an emergency fixture that wasn't on the original drawing. I think also if you look at the switches in the restrooms, on the original drawing, they weren't occupancy sensors, they were just regular switches, so the OC comes up in red. And again, if I look at the notes down here, there was a whole note added about the time clock and the lighting contactor. So what we're looking for is anything that's in red is going to give us an indication that was something that was added to the new drawing. Okay. I think those are all really pretty cool features. So do we have any questions, Derek?
No, not yet, but we can wait a couple minutes here and maybe touch on a couple related things. Before the webinar, I know we talked a little bit about for those of you who don't currently use Planswift or our electrical bid manager for estimating, one of our goals with the integration of with Planswift was kind of to keep it simple and to not kind of maintain the workflow that an electrical bid manager user is used to by going through our takeoff modules and inputting a count. But so instead of doing the count separately, now it's part of your workflow as you take off within EBM.
What I found, over the last, I guess it's at least 2 or 3 years we've been using Planswift now, is that learning the Planswift part of it is a very easy transition for most people. The people that know their way around EBM, adding on the electronic takeoff is a piece of cake. You really need 2 monitors. So I think sometimes when in the webinar, we don't do it justice, but the best way to do it is to have EBM on one of your screens, like your laptop or your desktop, then have the drawings on Planswift on another one. And I would even, and I work with a lot of customers who have 3 monitors because sometimes you want 2 different pages from the drawings. If you're taking off the lighting, you might want the lighting on one screen where you're actually doing the counting. And then you might want another page from the drawing that has the fixture schedule, so you can reference that. Same thing with feeder schedules or symbol schedules. It's always nice to be able to pull that up on another monitor without having to change pages in Planswift. So that's a real handy thing to do. A large portion of the people I work with when I go to on-sites now have 3 monitors, and it really works nice. And monitors are really pretty cheap these days. It's nice to have a 4K monitor, but for most of what we're doing here, the standard 1K, 2K monitors are more than fine for looking at PDFs.
Yep, 1080p or just above that, I think, is still great for this purpose.
Yep.
In the end, you can get USB or USB-C adapters for extra screens fairly inexpensive nowadays.
That's what I use on my laptop, because most laptops usually only have one HDMI output, but you can get a USB adapter, like Derek said, that can give you additional HDMI ports.
All right, we have a question here, Brian.
Okay.
If you mess up or make an error in Planswift, how do you correct your mistake in EBM?
Good question. So basically what you want to do is delete the item that you made a mistake on. So, and when you do that, let let me go back a couple steps. That's a good. Well, let's go to the other drawing. So first of all, another example of taking off an item is these two GFI receptacles that I didn't take off. So let's go take those off, and I'm going to purposely make a mistake. So I'm going to go back here. I'm going to go to GFI. Let's just say I wasn't paying attention and I picked a weatherproof cover. And I'm going to go ahead and take it off. Now, if I caught it now, I can backspace and it'll undo it. Let's say I don't catch it until I've recorded it. So there's the two assemblies that are wrong. So now we just go back into Planswift and we delete them. Now you can do one of two things. You can delete all of those, or you can just delete individual points. In this case, we can actually delete both of them. So I'm going to hit delete. It says, are you sure you want to delete all of them? And you say yes. So what happens now in EBM, it puts a negative entry into EBM. If you see up in the top right here, it's put -2. So that will make a negative entry onto the audit trail, basically canceling out the original one. And then you can go back and take it off correctly. So we go back to devices. It's right where we want it to be. And we'll put it back in correctly. So making mistakes is basically 2 steps to fix it. You got to delete it, and then you got to put the right one back in. Good question. Thank you.
Yep.
If you're looking at my audit trail here, you'll see there's the 2 GFIs I put in originally. There's the -2 that took them out, and then one more entry to put them back in correctly. Now, the thing about the minuses, when you run your reports at the end, everything is all consolidated. You won't see a -2 in your job extension. You'll just see the result of the totals.
And that applies as well if you just need to delete one of the accounts you did in Planswift, right? It'll just bring over a -1.
Right.
And then you're good. You don't need to retake anything off in EBM.
Right.
Yeah, I can't think of anything else regarding corrections like that. So
Again, I think it's real important to stress how straightforward this is to learn. I think people are kind of intimidated by electronic takeoff, but I can guarantee anybody who's started it would never go back and do it manually. It's almost painful to go back and do these things manually, where you have to write things down and key them in. It's just not the way you need to do things these days.
Right, and we try to make it pretty easy on our users to adopt Planswift with EBM, meaning we offer training, we offer premium training, like paid training, that you'll work with Brian to get up to speed with using Planswift with EBM. We also have free videos on YouTube. If you check out our YouTube channel, and there's plenty of videos there, a training webinar just for that purpose. And what's the other sort of support? If you're on our subscription of Electrical Bid Manager, then you can get support if you have questions about how Planswift integrates with EBM, or you get stuck on something with the integration. You could always reach out to our support department, and they'll kind of give you a little bit of a guide on that.
Yeah, that's important, that you don't have to call Planswift. You can go straight to our normal support guys, and they can help you with anything you need questions on with Planswift, use with EBM.
So we have another question here that's, how do you display 2 images with Planswift? Like if you have multiple monitors or 3 monitors.
So you wouldn't use Planswift for the secondary image. You just bring it up in your PDF viewer, whatever you use in Adobe or Bluebeam or any of those, whatever else you use to view your drawings. So you really basically have 3 programs running simultaneously. You have Planswift on one screen, you have EBM on another, and then your drawings separately on another screen using whatever viewer you want for your PDF images.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I can't think of anything to add to that. Did that answer your question, Aaron?
Sometimes I get people that say, well, you know, a lot of the time we don't get drawings. What should I do? Well, that's where you use the design part. You know, you actually place the symbols on the drawing, do your layout on the prints. I mean, you have to have some kind of a print. You have to have at least an outline of the building, and then you can actually put the symbols on the drawing. You can run your feeders. You can take off all of the same things you would need to if you didn't have an electrical layout.
All right. Well, let's see.
Do we wrap it up?
It looks like, well, yeah, sort of. I think we could start wrapping up, and if you still have a question, we'll catch it. We share the Google I guess web form or whatever link below the video for questions, but it doesn't seem to be as popular as it used to be. We haven't had any questions submitted there in a couple of these webinars, but we'll keep doing it for a while. I think some people maybe don't have a Google account and would like to ask a question, and that lets you do that. But I did want to plug, of course, our YouTube channel. We have almost 1,700 subscribers now, and it's growing. We add over 100 a month right now, and hey, you know, they're subscribing so that they can get email notifications when we post new videos is usually why they're subscribing, so they can keep better track of us, and our videos will show up in their feeds, their YouTube feeds. I know a lot of people use YouTube quite a bit. I know I do. So be sure to subscribe, and whenever you can, give a thumbs up or comment on the videos. Brian and I usually personally respond to any comments on the videos.
Yep.
One of the things we do in our weekly meetings, we're like, all right, what comments do we have that we haven't gotten to yet? So we'll get back to you on there usually. And I also wanted to plug a couple other things real quick while we're winding down. Our Epic pricing service with NetPricer. So pricing still, you know, it's still going up and down. I know we're seeing, I can't say we're seeing copper related products going down yet, but copper,
Even though
raw
copper has
is.
come down, but the actual prices of the material haven't, huh?
Right. I don't think so. So, but it's something to keep an eye on, because raw copper keeps going down quite a bit, actually. So that's where Epic comes in. Keep your commodity prices up to date. We're updating our commodities, wire and conduit, nearly daily at this point, because prices are changing. We call it a duo, or dynamic update option. So anytime prices shift, we detect it and we update your estimating software through Epic. And the NetPricer add-on for Epic lets you pull your pricing directly from your supplier, and our Epic database then fills in any gaps in that pricing for you with a nice benchmark average price called target price. So it's something to take a look at, our Epic
those
pricing.
Of you who aren't familiar with NetPricer, it's a service that you can set up with your local distributors. You know, you can do any of your local distributors. Most people set it up with one or two. And then when you've got your estimate complete, there's a little feature in EBM where you submit it to the supplier or suppliers you want to get pricing from, and it comes back basically instantly over the internet.
Instantly, yeah.
with that supplier's pricing. And like Derek said, it also one of the benefits of Epic is Epic will put a pricing in on anything that they don't price. So whether it's a couple items or maybe it's a product line they don't carry, at least you'll get a valid, accurate price from Epic when the supplier doesn't provide it to you on the internet.
All right. Enough about Epic. We're here about EBM and Planswift. So we have a couple questions.
Okay, great.
Let's see. First off, we have Robert, who's curious, how does EBM work with Bluebeam? And I'll try to answer this first, Brian, and you could take
Sure.
over the fill in blanks. But currently there is not an integration with Bluebeam. We keep an eye on Bluebeam to see if they open up an integration of any type, but they haven't yet, as far as we know. So I believe, tell me I'm wrong, Brian, but I believe Bluebeam has counting and some measuring capabilities where you could manually do that separately. And we know users who even do that with Planswift. They'll do everything in Planswift how they like to do it, because they have specific ways of using Planswift. And then they'll manually go back into EBM and take off all of those counts and measurements, kind of like you would with a printed plan and a highlighter and a tally sheet type situation. So that's the way you would use Bluebeam. I think Brian's reference to Bluebeam earlier was more of using Bluebeam as a reader. Like a lot of our users use Bluebeam as a PDF reader and maybe markup of some type. So you could use Bluebeam to view a plan on your third screen, let's say, and on your second screen you would have Planswift, and on your first screen you'd have Electrical Bid Manager, EBM.
This is maybe kind of an interesting example. One of the companies I've been working with quite a bit over the last couple, 3 months is they have project managers who are using Bluebeam to review their upcoming portion of the job. So they'll go in and highlight that part of the drawing that they're going to be working on in the next time period, a couple weeks, couple months, whatever. And then the project manager will take that and input it into EBM so they can get just that portion of the job into EBM to get projections for labor and material, but mainly for labor. So that again, the project manager is using Bluebeam just to highlight what he's going to be working on, and then the field person is going to highlight what he's going to work on, and then the project manager in the office actually uses Planswift to input it and for projections and planning.
Sounds like a pretty good workflow.
Yeah, and you could do that with any PDF viewer. Just highlight what you're going to use, but it's better than trying to communicate verbally. Okay, we're working on the first floor lighting, or working on the second floor electrical room. They can just simply highlight that, or the site work. They can highlight the portion of the site they're going to be working on, and then the estimator knows what the project manager who needs to estimate and do the projections can just input that straight into EBM.
It's a good example. All right, I have another one here.
Sure.
How do you do feeder measurements using Planswift?
I guess I can do a quick little example here. There's a linear function in EBM, but the process would be the same. Okay, so up here in the top right is the main service MDP. Let's say I want to run a feeder down to this panel PP2. You would go into EBM to the feeder module, and you'd set up the feeder. Whoops. I'm going to do MDP from MDP to panel PP2. And then we set up the conduit. We're going to run this in PVC under the slab. And we're going to put 4 1/0 and a number 8 for a ground. I'm going to go with PVC elbows. I don't need a support. So you set it up just like you were going to input it if you had already taken it off. Now in this case though, the little Planswift icon initiates measuring instead of counting. So you just simply click up on the starting point here. You just bring your mouse down to the ending point. So that's 126 feet. Oops. Now I want to add a 5-foot riser coming up into this panel in the wall. So it's got a little button for add drop riser. You can put 5 feet. And we'll put it here. Oops. Get back to the right screen. There we go. So there's our 5-foot riser. And if you want to count elbows, you can do that too. This little button next to the elbows will let you put elbows at each end. and then it puts everything into EBM. So there's my total length. That 132 is 127 basically plus 5 feet. The 2 elbows we took off, and then you just hit takeoff. Make up in. I think that's, again, handy because now again, if you send this to somebody in the field, they would see how the estimator ran the feeder. You can see that it was underground because we did it in PVC, and we can see that we ran it straight diagonally instead of at right angles, which is the other option.
Yep. I think that was pretty good. All right. Well, thanks, Robert and Edgar, for those questions. Hopefully we covered them for you. If you have any follow-up questions, go ahead and type them in, or I think we'll kind of wrap up a little bit here. Brian, do you want to give any plugs for upcoming training or just your training services?
We do have classroom training coming up next month in Fort Worth in the Dallas area.
Yeah. In person.
In person classes in the Fort Worth area. Let me just see if I can get you.
Otherwise, we're still doing virtual classroom training.
Yep.
Practically every month. So I'm sure you're getting emails about that. And if for some reason you're not, you could visit our website, and we have updated schedules for our virtual classroom and our in-person classes. We just don't do as many in-person visits anymore.
And then, of course, I'm also available for on-site training. I've been doing 2, 3, 4 of those a month over the last 3 or 4 months. So that's been nice to be able to get back to doing that on-site training. I find that's always a really effective way to do things, whether it's, it might be a situation where you've got some beginners, you've got some advanced users, and you need training for both. You may need training on customizing the program. I've worked with a couple of companies lately that have real specialized type of work. So we went in and spent some time just getting that in place. And then again, like Derek said, we also have virtual classrooms where you can get training and introductory training and advanced training on EBM and a little bit on Epic too.
Yep, and Brian handles all of those classes. He's the instructor, so you get a good feel for what Brian brings to the table by joining us here at these webinars, because I know he's pretty much getting 5 out of 5 reviews post-training from students. All right, one more question. How do you add multipliers?
I'm not sure what the question means.
Need a little bit more define multipliers, I guess.
Do you mean if there's a typical part of the job, like maybe there's a typical room or a typical floor, that kind of a thing? I'm probably thinking that's what you're referring to, and that would all be handled on EBM. When you're in the job extension, you can tell it to multiply anything you've broken out. So if you broke out, the example I always do in class is a hotel where you've got a standard room and you've got a suite. So at the end, you just tell it that you've got 50 of the standard rooms and 10 of the suites, and then EBM takes care of the multipliers. So I assume that's what you're talking about with multipliers. Unless if I'm off track there, let me know. But
yeah, I can't think of anything else. The only other thing pops in my head is factoring, but that's a different matter.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I don't know if we have any thoughts for our next webinar yet. I don't think you and I have discussed that, Brian.
No, we haven't.
We have no teasers for the next one.
We should, but we don't yet.
I know. We need to get to the point where we can tease what we're going to do next month, but I don't know, maybe we'll touch on pricing a little bit more next month. I don't know. That's one thought. We like to try to keep them fairly focused and short. So I don't know. Maybe going over the job extension report or something. And we'll see. Feel free to email us. Probably the easiest way would be to send an email to sales@visioninfosoft.com if you have any training or webinar ideas that you think would be you'd like to see covered here live, and you'd maybe like to have some feedback and see what other people think of it. We're always open to ideas. All right, so we got some feedback from Robert about the multipliers. We do work in containment carts that add additional work.
Okay, well, again, that wouldn't be a function of the takeoff, I don't think. That would be a function of how you factor the job in EBM, whether you need to use higher labor factors for part of the job or all of the job, depending on the situation. That would be something you would handle in EBM.
Based on difficulty, right?
Based on difficulty, right.
Yeah.
Planswift is just a takeoff tool. It's a pretty nifty takeoff tool, but it doesn't do any of the analyzing. It just records your counts and your measurements. It's up to you as the estimator to, apply your knowledge to what needs to have additional time or additional materials or those kinds of things.
Well, can you show that real quick, just in EBM, where the factoring is on our?
Yeah. So
I don't want. Yeah.
In the job extension is where you would apply a factor to the entire job. So up here at the top right, if you normally use column 2, you could say factor it by adding 15%. And then that would add 15% to your labor units across the board. The other thing you could do is just in the job extension, you could factor individual items or just adjust the labor units on those items that need more difficulty. There's several ways to approach it. It depends a little bit on how you've taken off the job. If you've got an area of the job that needs more labor, then I don't know if I've got an example right now, but when you get to the job totals here, any of the breakouts you've done can be factored. Now that's material, but let's look at labor. That's really probably more what we're talking about. So if any of these areas require more labor, you can put a factor here. And that adjusts it up or down from what it would normally be. So you can do it individually on specific items. You can do it on groups of items that you've broken out, or you can do it across the board on the entire job by putting that factor in the job extension up here at the top right. So it's pretty flexible. You can do it at a very micro level or at a very macro general level, depending on what you think needs to be done.
Yep. He agreed that he was interested. He understood that it needed to be in EBM. All right. Well, thank you, Robert. Hopefully that answered your question. And you could also reach out to support. You could send an email to support@visioninfosoft.com or go to our website /support, visioninfosoft.com/support, or it's in the menu bar on our website, and fill out a form to create a support case. And support would be happy to go over that with you if you need a refresher. There might, that's interesting. I don't think we have a help video for that. I think mostly it's
on factoring specifically. I don't think we do. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll make a note of that. Maybe that's something we add next time we do a round of new help videos for our software. All right. Well, I think that wraps things up today. We went a little bit long, but that's okay. We had good questions. So keep the questions coming. Don't be shy, and we'll try to get to all of them next time. So we'll see you next month.
All righty. Thank you, everybody.